Today in this video, I'm excited to be checking out the Roborock Qrevo Pro. Roborock did send me this sample, but any opinion expressed in this video is strictly my own. That being said, if you're interested in this product or you want to find out more about it, the link to it will be in the video description. So front and center, they tell us what makes this unit unique. It's got the FlexiArm design, so we have edge mopping support. We also have hot water mop pad washing and warm air drying on this particular unit. And they walk you through those features on the sides of the box as well as the back. Now let's go ahead, let's open it up and see what's inside. Here are some of the contents. We'll get to the base station in a minute. First, you're looking at the product literature here, followed by the base station ramp. That's just gonna snap and clip right in place. Next, we have our mop pads here with the FlexiArm design branded on them. I love the red accent there. Power cord and cable, vacuum bag, and the vacuum itself. Let's look at that in more detail. Looking at the top of the vacuum, you'll notice front and center we got our LiDAR navigation module with Roborock's logo and branding on it, as well as on this flip-up cover that reveals a QR code for setup, as well as the dustbin, where we can pop off this filter to clean and replace as needed. And this does support self-empty, but if you ever need to empty it manually or clean out the dustbin, you can do that right there. And they have instructions for you directly on it. There's also a Wi-Fi indicator light and a reset button underneath the cover right there, and two control buttons up at the top. Now looking at it from the side at the very front, we have our Reactive Tech obstacle avoidance sensor suite right there. We'll move around so you get a feel for the navigational bumper and its field of play. We have our self-empty chute right there. Then on the back side, charging contacts and our refilling. Everything's done right there on the vacuum. Moving right along, we have an additional sensor on this side. Then we're back to the front. Flipping it over to the bottom reveals our spring-loaded drive wheels, omnidirectional wheel, our side cleaning brush already installed right out of the box, cliff sensors, one single main roller brush right here without any bristles, just rubber. And we can pop that cover off to clean and maintain as needed. Then it just snaps right back on. And down here, you'll notice this is where the two included mop pads will be installed. Doesn't matter which one goes which, but on this side, you'll notice we have that unique spacing here because that's the side that's gonna flex out and clean along the sides for us. Their FlexiArm design, that's what we have right there. So just snap them in place, and that one will kick out when it's time to clean along the edges. Now it's time to look at our base station here. At the very top, we have two grip handles for our dirty water tank and clean water tank, clearly labeled for us. Very easy to remove. Take a look inside with both tanks removed. And here's a look inside both of the clean and dirty water tanks. This is the dirty water tank right here with the float, and this is the clean water tank right there. They both have seals up at the top for the lids, and then they just both snap shut like that. Here's the side profile of the station and the other side. Here's a look at the back side where we have our cable management channel right here so we can route it to either side of the unit. And we have our extra cable storage right here and our power plug. Here's a look at the very bottom with 4 grip feet. And here's a look at the very front of the unit where we have our indicator light there, Roborock's branding on the glossy cover, which we can pull off to reveal our emptying vacuum bag right here. That's where all of our debris will be stored, and that just snaps right back on. And down at the bottom, this is where all the magic happens. We have our charging contacts. This is where it's going to be able to refill itself, clean, wash, and dry itself. And we have a sticker here that we need to remove, but we can actually pop this tray out so we can wash everything very easily. Stickers off. Now we can take the tray out to wash and clean as needed. There's a look inside with the tray removed. The last thing we have to do is install the base ramp. So just line everything up, and it basically just snaps right in place. There you go. Now let's plug everything in, charge it up, and try it out. Here's a look at the station after our first clean. No visual signs of really any dirt, dust, or debris. See a little bit of hair coming right out of there. Looking at the tray removed, it looks really, really clean. Just your typical fuzz and hair left behind. And then near spotless inside the station itself. I see one drop of water right there. That's it. Looking at the vacuum after our first clean, you'll notice the usual tangles here or there, like some hair collected around the side cleaning brush. Very common if you have long hair, pet hair, human hair in your household. You can expect something similar. This is great to see though. The main brush roller is basically free from tangles in the center and anything that's this red color, but we do have some longer hair built up on both sides of the brush. But we can easily cut off and clean that away. Here's a look inside at the main vacuum channel as well. Not bad, good to see, about what we would expect. And the mop pads look great. I don't see any discoloration or leftover dirt. They're already dry. It's been about 24 hours. And again, you can adjust the drying time for these mop pads, 2, 3, or 4 hours. But they're dry, they're clean, they look brand new. And now for the fun part, take a look at the dustbin right here. This is disgusting. Tons of pet hair and human hair and a lot of crumbs and larger debris that's collected on the bottom of the dustbin. Without making a big mess, I'll try to empty it out in here so we can take a closer look. We'll check out the filter too. A lot of crumbs in there. A lot of really fine dirt and dust already starting to collect in the filter, which is good to see. You don't want that exhausted back out through your house. You want that trapped in this filter so you can eventually replace as needed. Dustbin has your typical dust in it, and again, we haven't even done the self-empty yet, so you won't have to do this yourself. But I wanted to show you guys all the contents here. I mean, look at that. That's disgusting. We got large items in there, all the pet hair, everything that's trapped in the pet hair. Massive, massive, massive amount of stuff that we picked up from just one pass around our house. Let me show you a brief overview of the Roborock app so you can get a feel of all the different customization options and controls you have right at your fingertips. So here's our robot up at the top. We can quickly enter into a full clean or set up a routine like after meal cleaning. We can also just tap it to go right into our main overview of our current map with a rundown of some stats up at the top. We also have a map edit button towards the center right-hand side of the screen where we can set up no-go zones. We can even add furniture, edit the different surface types and materials. We can also edit our rooms to rename, resize, everything you'd want to do right there. And then here's a breakout of our map details. We can do 2D or 3D viewing. And there's a look at some additional things that we can add or place throughout the map to build out as we see fit. Also at this main screen at the bottom, we have our different cleaning options: full, room, zone, or routine clean. When we go back to full, we have our vac and mop option, but we can choose smart plan if we prefer. So this little graphic here walking us through the AI smart plan. If you'd rather do vacuum and mop, you have the option to adjust suction and water flow settings and how many times you want it to clean. And we basically have 2 different route options, standard or a fast route. We can also do mop only, vacuum only, or we can customize the clean off of each room. So up to you what you want to do. And then you'll notice the play button front and center at the bottom. That's how we can activate our vacuum to start cleaning. We also have our docked button here where we can view our status of our current dock. And we can choose to empty, wash, or dry right at the bottom there. And we can go into more dock settings here that we can adjust. And if we hit that little more option, that takes us to our device settings, which we can also access in the top right-hand corner, those 3 dots where we can view our cleaning history. We can set this up on a schedule. We have floor cleaning settings right here. If you want to use the FlexiArm Design, automatic remopping, pet area deep cleaning, clean along the floor direction. That's a nice touch depending on your floor type. You'll appreciate having that. Then we have those dock settings that we just looked at. They're right here again too. So we can adjust those as needed. Our reactive obstacle avoidance, we can toggle that on or off. Definitely recommend keeping that on. We have maintenance tips and tricks right here. So this lets us know when it's time to conduct our maintenance. We have our map settings again. We have our robot settings here. If you want to turn on child lock, or one of my favorite options, off-peak charging. We really only see that on Roborock vacuums, which is cool. Then we got pin and go options as well as remote control if you want to manually drive your vacuum. And then everything else is going to be your typical FAQ section, user guided manual. We have our firmware updates and device sharing if we want to share this device with anybody. And at the very bottom, we can delete the device. So very detailed app. Tons of customization options. You can really geek out if you want to build out the map, add furniture, all of that. You can do that here within the app. If you want to customize your clean depending on room type, you can do that as well. And then those cool key features like off-peak charging, and we have our full dock and base control right there. So a nice, simple, straightforward, easy to navigate app with a lot of customization. So how does the Qrevo Pro stack up against the competition? Well, let's take a look. We'll be comparing it to over 60 plus robot vacuum cleaners that we personally tested and reviewed. First up, max suction power. This is measured in PAs. The higher the result, usually the better, but we don't always know until we get to our actual carpet deep cleaning test. So 7,000 PAs versus the average of 5,000, over 2,000 PAs extra in favor for our vacuum here versus your typical robot vac. Next, we have max CFM. This is just like suction power, where usually the higher the better. Now for this result, we measure this in-house. And I had to put an asterisk here because we were only able to peak our measurement at 4.8. That's going to be below average by about 2 points. But we did notice during testing that the vacuum seemed to shift like it was vacuuming again on like a hard floor versus getting any sort of carpet boost and max suction. So with that being said, we think the result would be higher, but with our testing capabilities, this is the best that we could get. And case in point, when we look at the carpet deep cleaning score, we got a perfect score of 100 out of 100 compared to the average of 85. So 15 points better than the competition, a perfect clean. Next up is decibels. The lower this value, the quieter your vacuum will be. We always test this on max suction power, vacuuming carpets with any sort of carpet boost enabled as well. So in this case, we're 2 decibels above the average. That's going to be indistinguishable to the average person's ear if this vacuum was cleaning in the room next to you versus your average typical RoboVac at only 70 decibels. Moving right along, battery life. This is measured in minutes, 180-minute runtime. That's 30 minutes greater than your typical robot vac. One reason we get that great battery life is due to our large battery capacity of 5,200 milliamp hours. That's almost 2,000 milliamp hours greater than your average RoboVac. Next, let's talk about height. Our Qrevo Pro comes in at 3.8 inches compared to the average of 3.6. Now, that average skews lower because we cover quite a few vacuums that are very basic, that don't have LiDAR navigation, so they don't have to have this module up at the top. Moving right along to bin capacity, this is measured in milliliters. We were not able to find any official documentation to support what the internal dustbin capacity is. Gauging from our previous regular Qrevo model, it would appear that we're at that same 350 milliliter range, somewhere within there. So going to be probably slightly below average, but very in line with your typical Roborock vacuums. And when you have a self-emptying vacuum like this, they usually always come in below the average because they don't need to have as large of a dustbin because they empty themselves versus you having to manually empty it. When you're doing that work, the brands tend to design them with a larger dustbin to prevent you from having to make as many trips. All that same stuff can be said for the water tank capacity as well. We're not sure the exact result here. It's an internal tank that isn't published, but if we're going off the Qrevo standards, it'd be around that 80 milliliter range, give or take. Again, just like the dustbin, this vacuum can refill its water tank when needed, so it's basically a moot point. You don't need to have it carrying around hundreds of milliliters of water because it's going back home to wash and clean itself anyway. So in this case, same thing, it's going to skew below the average, whereas you typically see those 200, 300 milliliter water tanks on vacuum and mop combos that you have to manually refill yourself. Next, let's talk about hot water mop washing. This is an awesome feature. This is measured in degrees Fahrenheit. Not a lot of vacuums have this feature. It's definitely a premium feature available on the market today. In regards to those that do, though, we do take measurements, and in this case, 140 degrees Fahrenheit is the hot water temp for this vacuum, whereas the average is 152, so about 12 degrees less. And same can be said for hot air drying. This is a premium feature as well. So there's only a couple of units that have this feature, and all of them have the same temperature of 113 degrees Fahrenheit, and that's across different brands. So really interesting if they're using the same sort of motor heater, whatever, from the same supplier, that they're all coming in at that same 113 degree temp. Next, let's talk about mop lift height. This is measured in millimeters. This is also a premium feature. This unit comes in at 10 millimeters for the mop lift height. The higher the better, because that's going to be less and less contact with your rugs and carpets. The average is going to be 10.3, but honestly, that's just skewed higher because of Roborock's very own, I think it's the S8 Max V Ultra that has a 20 millimeter mop lift height, so that skewed the average above 10, when typically 10 is a really solid mop lift height. We can't forget about Mop Extend, another fantastic feature that's only found on high-end vacuums like this, where the mop pad can kick out to give you that better clean along baseboards and corners. So awesome that they included it with this vacuum. And next up, let's talk about mop pad removal. I just wanted to mention it because I'm hopeful in the future that Roborock will start incorporating this with future vacuums. That's a feature that's absent from this model. Now, most models out there, unless it's within Dreamy's lineup, don't include this either, but Dreamy Tech and their vacuums, their premium X and L series devices do offer this feature, which I think is really cool. It basically makes mop lifting a thing of the past because you don't have to worry about lifting your mop up when your vacuum's smart enough to be able to take the mop pads on and off before it goes and encounters carpets and rugs to clean. Anyways, just wanted to mention that really quickly as something we'd like to see with this vacuum in the future, especially for what this vacuum is. It would definitely be something that we would expect or hope to expect in the next version. And why we have such high expectations for this vacuum is because of the cost. So this vacuum is a premium vacuum with flagship features, and because of that, you do have that premium pricing. Now, it's going to be a little bit less than twice as expensive as your average RoboVac, but you definitely get above average performance and features. But we want to see even more included at this price point to make it an even better value for you, the consumer. So where does that leave us in regards to the Roborock Qrevo Pro? Well, let me share with you my final thoughts. Here's what you need to know. First, this is a very capable vacuum and mop. Doesn't matter if it's hard floors or carpets, it does a great job vacuuming. Hairy households or not, look no further. In regards to mopping, having the revolving and spinning mop pads does a great job breaking down dirt on your floors, and it does give you a better clean, at least from my experience and observation, versus your typical drag flat behind, or even some of the vibrating ones out there just don't do as good of a job from what I've observed. And with the ability to hot water wash and hot air dry, it's going to keep your mop pads cleaner longer. So it's great to see that it's capable of cleaning your house as well as cleaning itself. And while it is a very capable robot vacuum and mop, there are still some things I'd want to see improved and fixed in the future. The first one's going to be its obstacle avoidance. It's just not where it should be for a vacuum in this price range, at least from my experience. I always have high expectations, and for some reason, vacuums tend to struggle usually with smaller items, but do better with larger ones. This one just did, again, not as expected. It really shouldn't have had any trouble with the larger objects. I understand some of the smaller ones, but again, that is just something that we need to see refined and built out in the future. I was hoping for better object recognition than what we have with this vacuum. That's going to be its weakest spot in my opinion. And then the second thing, this is just me being very picky, but I'm spoiled by other Roborock vacuums as well as other competitors that have the swing out side cleaning brush. I'd like to see that incorporated with this vacuum in the future. I understand it's already in other Roborock lineups, so again, it's up to them what they want to do. And the good news is you can get it, just not with this vacuum yet.